Hello everyone, it's Scott Towns here from the UK. I'd just like to say a huge thank you to Bob Bergen and the team at the Cakewalk Sonar User Group for putting together the mix competition recently to mix the Sophia Jane track Living for Now, and I'm absolutely over the moon that I was one of the people that was picked as a winner alongside Lee and Nick. So well done to the other two guys, and also a huge well done to anybody that put a mix into the competition. I'm sure, like me, you would have learnt so much more about the software that we know and love, and I've certainly picked up some extra tips that I wasn't aware of before. So really pleased to have had a go entering the competition, and as I say, absolutely over the moon that I was chosen as one of the winners. It's really made my week. Thank you so much. A few people have asked if I could share some of the techniques that I'd used to put my mix together. And it's quite timely, really, because at the moment I'm just about to embark on a YouTube channel for very basic home recording hints and tips. It's going to be called Home Recording Help. And so I thought I'd use this as an opportunity to try out my new screen capture software, which is Movavi Screen Capture. And it seems to be working quite well. So if it's okay with you guys, I'll use this as a bit of a test case to see how it goes and how it works. And I'll share some of the ideas as to what I did. So if we head on over to the console view, which is a great place to start, I always find, you'll see that I've disabled my plugins using the bypass all audio effects button at the moment. And the reason I did that was because I like to import the tracks into the mix and then just use the faders to create a very basic fader mix and some simple panning as well before I do anything at all. So we can have a quick listen now to the track in its raw format with just this very basic fader mix, and let's see how that sounds.
And I've never met a guy as gentle, real as you are. A guy much more deeper than most, who sees color in everything and feels sound through his bones.
So you'll get the idea as to what that rough raw mix sounds like, and you can tell it's not too bad already, really. It's a very organic sounding dynamic mix, and I think the song dictated that, to be frank. I think it cries out for that very basic processing and very basic mixing. So at that stage it's already sounding quite good. But let's just go through each of the tracks, and we'll talk about some of the additions that I made to them. So starting with the drum track, this drum track came to us in a simple stereo track. So it was already pretty much mixed, to be honest. There was no kick drum, snare drum, toms to sort out. It just came to us as a stereo file. So I found that it was pretty well recorded. It sounded great. The snare sounded really punchy, and I didn't do much with it. All I really did was add some reverb, and I'll talk about the reverb in a few moments when I come on to the buses that I've used within the track. So track one, the drums, nothing really on there other than a little bit of fader control to change the volume. So if we move over to the bass track, track 2, you'll see that there's no plugins applied here at all. Again, just a little bit of volume control here using the slider. I did have some EQ, and for that I used the Pro Channel Quad Curve. Let's just move on by enabling the effects and the plugins by clicking on this button. So now we have all of our effects and plugins enabled on the mix. Let's open up the Pro Channel, and let's double click on the Quad Curve to show you the EQ. Now you'll see I did quite a steep low pass cut here, and first of all I'll show you what that sounds like without the EQ enabled. So we'll disable the EQ and we'll solo the bass track, and we'll play the song now, and you can have a listen to the raw bass track. So you notice there was quite a lot of hiss there, and I managed to remove that by putting this low pass filter in. So if we enable the EQ and listen to the track again, you'll hear now that a lot of that hiss has now disappeared. Here we go. So I thought that sounded a lot better and a lot more controlled. A little bit of subtle EQ here and there on this particular track, but not much really, just cutting out a little bit of the mud in the low mids and accentuating a little bit of the low around about 130 hertz, 132 hertz. And that was the bass track. Nothing more needed to be done on that. Let's just minimize this again. Moving over to the acoustic guitar. A little bit more on this one. So again, just going back to the quad curve EQ. What I did here is I just did a high pass filter up to, where's that up to? Probably around about 100 hertz. A little bit of cut again around about the low mids at 300 hertz. I do find that acoustic guitars can sound a little bit muddy in that area. And a tiny little cut here, and the reason for that was because I found there was quite a harsh frequency that just needed cutting out within the acoustic guitar. So again, very simple EQ choices made on this particular track. I did add a compressor, and for this I chose the Nomad Factory BT compressor. Let's have a quick look at that one. Very subtle. It was just giving a little bit of gain reduction. So again, if we just solo the track and we'll hit play, and you can have a listen to the acoustic guitar on its own. Here we go. So you can just hear that a lot of the rumble and the bass has been rolled off using the high pass filter. And then the gain reduction is very small, probably no more than 3 or 4 dB, just catching the peaks of the strums of the guitar. Okay, so if we just minimize this again, and we'll move over to the ambient guitar. Now, the ambient guitar I felt was just a really nice sound. It didn't need anything doing to it, in my opinion. Neither did the main guitar. Again, they'd obviously been recorded through some effects or an amp or something, and they just didn't need to be touched, in my opinion. So, but what I did do was I panned them hard left and hard right. And what that gives you is a real sense of the two guitars being in different spaces in the mix. So a very simple technique, but it did separate those two guitars up quite well in the mix. Move it over to Chris's guitar. Again, same thing. I felt it was a really nice sound, as I did the low guitar. And I just kept these center panned. So it gives us this little bit of separation between the 4 guitars. Let's have a quick listen to those 4 soloed, and you'll hear how separated they sound just by using a little bit of simple LCR left, center, right panning. Here we go. So very simple effects there, just using panning to create some space in the mix. I think it works really, really well. So let's move over to the next track, track 8, which is the lead vocal. Obviously spent a lot more time on this one, as you can see from the plugins that I'd applied. Let's have a quick look at the quad curve EQ again. So fairly simple. There's a high pass filter that rolls off at around about 100 hertz. There's a low mid cut at around about 300 hertz just to get rid of some of that muddiness in her voice. And then the high mids at around, what's that, about 3.9, 4K. I found that there was quite a harsh frequency there that just kept ringing in my ears a little bit. So there's quite a drastic cut of minus 6 dB at that particular frequency. And again, just a little bit of high frequencies here, just a little bit of air, adding 1 or so dB of air at the end. So just to capture those high frequencies. So again, fairly simple EQ, with the exception of maybe this cut here, which I was trying to be surgical in getting rid of a bit of a nasty frequency I didn't like the sound of. If we move over to the plugins, I'm a big fan of the LA2A. I'm normally a Universal Audio UAD guy, so this was quite a challenge for me to use some of the plugins in Sonar, but I'm very familiar with the LA2A in UAD, so this was very easy for me to use. I'm really pleased about that. And again, just a little bit of light compression to start off with on the vocal. Let's just solo the vocal for 1 second, and let's have a listen back to the vocal. First of all, hitting this first CA2A compressor. Here we go.
Yes, it's gone. Should I drop you and move on my way?
Very light, not really more than -1 dB of peak reduction, and I use the makeup gain just to equal out the volume there as well. And what I then did was take another instance of the CA2A, and if we play the vocal again, this is basically capturing just the other peaks that slip through the net with the first CA2A. So this is a very well-known technique of stacking compressors on top of each other within vocals. It just helps to give it a natural, smooth ride from a compression perspective. Again, let's press play and hear the vocals on their own. Here we go.
Yes, it's gone. Should I drop you and move on my way?
So that second compressor is just really just mopping up maybe half a dB here and there over the first compressor that's kicking maybe -1. Very simple, very, very effective. It's a technique I've always used on vocals. If we move then down to this EQ, the LP EQ, you'll notice that all I did on this was just simply add a little bit of boost at just under 10k. So 1.5 dB of gain increase at about 10k. And I just felt that it added a little bit of air to the vocal. And I don't know, if I take it out, I miss it. If I didn't have it in there, didn't think about it at the start, maybe it's not that important, but I do miss it if it's not in there. So I don't know, it just sounded quite right to me. So I left it in, there we go. So again, the vocal chain just really made up of a couple of stacked compressors, a little bit of extra air on that EQ there. And again, we'll talk about the reverbs and the delay in a few moments' time. Let's just minimize this. I'm going to skip track 9 for a second, come back to that. Track 10, which is the lead vocal double, left as it was. I didn't think it needed anything doing to it at all. And I didn't want it to be too much sounding the same as the lead vocal track, so I left that as it was. Again, some reverb, we'll talk about that in a moment. What I did do though was I duplicated the lead vocal double track and used Melodyne to basically pitch shift it, to give it a harmony. So I created this track 11 myself. Let's just move over to the track view and we can have a quick look at how that looks on the track view. So track 10, lead vocal double. And all I did was, for certain parts of the harmony, I used Melodyne to just pitch shift the vocal a little bit to give a harmony effect. So if we have a look, you'll see that it's a very simple harmony. And what I did have to do was I had to move some of the blobs around because the harmony it naturally created wasn't quite correct in line with the harmony of the lead vocal dub itself. So I did have to spend some time just moving these around until I found the notes that fitted with that particular harmonic run that I was looking for. But fairly simple. I love Melodyne, use it all the time, and this is one of the first times I used it for creative purposes, though, to be frank. So I set myself a little challenge there, and that sounds quite nice. In fact, let's have a quick listen to the lead vocal double and the Melodyne together. Here we go.
Don't want no tight downs, don't need no set sounds. When 6 months hits us, bud, just hand me your heart now. I promise we won't fall down.
So that sounds quite effective, and it gave us another harmony that wasn't in the track originally. Okay, we'll just head back to the console view again. There was a background vocal track that came with the mix. Didn't do much to that again, just added some reverb. And then we had the tambourine and the shaker. I'd panned the tambourine hard right, the shaker hard left. And yeah, they didn't need anything doing to them as well, to be frank. Just a little bit of reverb on the tambourine. I like shakers nice and dry. I think they sound great when they're just dry and left as they are. One little thing going back to the lead vocal dub and the Melodyne one was that I did pan one a little bit left at 10% and a little bit right at 10%, just to give it some separation from each other. Okay, so one of the more creative things I did on the track, and again, if we just go back to the track view for a second, you'll notice that I made a lead vocal phone track here where the song breaks down. So this is what it sounds like. I'll play it for you first of all. Here we go.
Don't want to tie down, just don't need no sad sounds. When 6 months it's us, but just hand me your heart now. I promise we won't fall down. Just trust us, living for now.
Yeah, I really like that. It was an idea that came to me whilst I was mixing the track. I just felt that the song was a little bit samey all the way through, and that gave the impression that the vocalist was talking to the person she was referring to in the song, maybe on a telephone. I don't know. It just sounded quite appropriate for me. So how I did that, let's just again go back to the console view. I'll show you. First of all, cut and pasted into a duplicate track that particular element of the lead vocal. And then if we have a look at the track itself. So first of all, I used EQ here on the quad curve EQ to create a bell-shaped telephone curve. And all you do there is you just cut the low frequencies and cut the high frequencies until you get the sound that you like. And in this case, it was cut up to, what's that, about 500, 450, 500 hertz, and it was cut from about 5k, 4.5k, something like that. So it gives us this range here, which sounds like a telephone. It's as simple as that. So that worked really well. I then also sent that to a bus, which had an instance of the Nomad tempo delay, which was set to the radio delays preset. I'm a big fan of presets, generally speaking, and you know, that was very easy to just drop that down into the radio delays preset, and you end up with that that sort of telephone sound on the track, and you also end up with it in the delay as well. And I was really pleased with that. That was something that really did work on the track, I felt. There was also a little bit of compression on the lead vocal, so I used the CA2A again for that, and that seemed to just rein in some of those high peaks again on that particular track. Okay, so we've talked about each of the tracks individually. I'm now just going to talk about the buses that I created. So using simple buses here, stereo buses, I created a drum reverb bus, a basic main reverb bus, a main delay, and the radio delay that I talked about a few moments ago. So if we go back to the drum track, track 1, you'll see that there's a send going to the drum reverb. And what I did there was, first of all, I used the Sonitus gate to cut off the hi-hats, basically. I found that the hi-hats were coming through and creating a wash of reverb for each hi-hat hit. So I used the gate to only trigger the reverb on the kick and snare hits. So if we solo that track and just play it back here we go. So you'll hear you can't actually pick out the hi-hats because they're not coming through, because the gate is only being triggered when the kick and the snare drum hits, which is great. So you only get the reverb effect on the kick and the snare hits, not on each of the hi-hat hits, which would just be a wash of reverb. What I then did was I used the Blue Verb reverb plugin and chose the snare plate. Again, big fan of presets. It's not rocket science, this. They've obviously chosen that for a particular reason. It sounded great. I did mess about with a few of the presets, but that was the one that sounded the best for me. So again, if we solo the drums, and that will also pick out the reverb as well. Let's have a listen to that. And I'm really pleased how that sounds, because you get the reverb coming through on the kick and the snare, as I've said a few times now, and but the hi-hat is really crisp, and it really sort of punches through the mix. You can hear it all the time. So I'm really pleased with that drum sound. It sounds great. And if we move over to the acoustic guitar, here we've just got a simple send to the main reverb bus, and again there's an instance of the Blue Verb on there, and I used a plate preset on this occasion. Again, nothing special, just picked a nice sounding plate preset. I tried a few of them, and that was the one that sounded the best. So again, let's have a quick listen to the acoustic guitar with the reverb added. Sounds really nice. And then if we move along to the lead vocal, we've got a reverb send again to the same reverb, and then a delay as well, going to a delay bus, where I had another instance of the Nomad BT tempo just at the factory setting, and I did sync the tempo to the speed of the song, which was 70 beats per minute, and that just gives you that in-time delay. So again, if we just solo the lead vocal for a second, you'll hear that coming through with the reverb and the delay. Here we go.
Oh, you drove me home and dropped me off just like that. So cold. You let me on.
So a nice subtle reverb, nice subtle delay, just gives a bit of space to the lead vocal. So again, really pleased with that. Moving over to the lead vocal double, a bit of reverb. We've got a little bit of reverb on the Melodyne harmony that I'd created. Same again on the backing vocal, and a little bit more on the tambourine and none on the shaker, as I said earlier on. And then finally, I took the master bus here and added an instance of the adaptive limiter. There's a little story here. I was just about to purchase an LUFS meter, and didn't realise that we already had one within the adaptive limiter plugin. So luckily, I was mixing this song at the time and saw this just before I hit purchase. So that saved me some money. So I'm really grateful for that. And the adaptive limiter is just really, I've set the ceiling at -1 dB. If you're wondering why I do that, just have a listen to any of Ian Shepherd's tutorials and podcasts about mastering. There's reasons for this I won't go into on this, but it's all to do with how the various media formats, YouTube, Spotify and the like, end up altering the sound anyway. So there's no benefit in you maxing out and crushing your mixes right up to 0 dB, but that's another story for another day. But if we just hit play now, you'll just see the adaptive limiter just kissing the odd dB of peak reduction here. Let's have a listen.
And I've never met a guy as gentle or real as you are. A guy much more deeper than most, who sees color in everything and feels sound through his bones. So I thought you believed in.
So very subtle again, just enough just to keep it under control and to make the mix sound great. I think it sounds really, really punchy thanks to the adaptive limiter. So we've been through most of the track now. I think I've pretty much covered everything off. And except for one thing, yes, of course. So let's just go back to the track view for a moment. And this was a little trick that I tried in almost at the end of the mix, really. And I found that at the start here, I didn't want the lead vocal to be too awash with reverb. Later in the song, it was fine, but at the start, I wanted it to be quite dry and quite intimate. So I used the automation sends to automate both the reverb and also the delay. So let's have a quick look at the reverb first of all. You'll see from the steps here that it starts off with nothing, and then it comes in a little bit, raises a little bit higher as we move into the song, and then sort of resolves itself at the reverb level I wanted for the rest of the song. I did the same thing with the delay. So the delay send here, again, started off low, resolves itself to where I wanted it in the song a bit later, but I used an effect, I think it's called the throw delay or delay throw effect, to pick out a particular couple of words that I felt could have been repeated at the start. So if we just play the song to start off with and just have a listen to this, here we go.
Autumn wraps us up tighter than we were prepared for, but we don't.
So the words prepared for, you'll hear repeated there. And that's simply created by just doing an automated send here to the delay. It's as simple as that. And then dropping it off again straight afterwards. And then I brought the delay in a little bit later on in the song, as you can see, once we got past the first verse or so. So that adds a little bit of an effect. Sounds quite nice and just gives a bit of interest to the song. Rather than just mix a song, I just looked for a couple of ideas, a couple of angles that might make my mix sound a little bit different to everybody else's. And not saying it's better, I'm sure it's not better, it's just a bit different. So here we had that delay throw, and then in the breakdown we had the telephone sound. And, little creative ideas like that might be the difference between your mix and somebody else's. So yeah, I'm quite proud of this. It was a great fun to put it together, and I really enjoyed it. And we're so lucky to have a software like Sonar, where now on certain versions of it we get these demo tracks even. So it's brilliant way to gain experience and to have a go and to learn some of the techniques. So I do encourage anybody to have a go. Even if you miss the competition, don't worry, just have a go. Stick it on SoundCloud, stick a link to your mix on the forum, and I'm sure myself and other people will be more than happy to have a listen to it and let you know what we think. And that's it really. So if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to hit me up on Messenger. Just drop me a quick message. I'll be happy to help. And keep an eye open for home recording help on YouTube. We'll see how that goes. Very basic hints and tips for simple home recording assistance. So I'm looking forward to having a go with that as well. Hope this has been of use to some of you out there. If you want to drop me a line, that'd be great. Let me know what you think. I'd really appreciate it. But once again, thanks so much to Bob Bergen and the team for putting this together. Bob and the guys spend a lot of time on the forum, and I know we all appreciate all the effort and hard work they put into it. It's really, really appreciated. So have fun mixing, guys, and look forward to speaking to you all again very soon, hopefully. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Autumn wraps us up tighter than we were prepared for, but we don't need to let it spin out. We can grasp every moment and walk off our doubts. And I wanna give this a try. I see where you're coming from, but open your eyes. We're fading and we're fading fast. What happened to same page? What happened to making it last? You don't want no tie down. You don't need no set sounds. When 6 months Just hand me your heart now. I promise we won't fall down. Just trust us, living for now. And I've never met a guy as gentle or real as you are. A guy much more deeper than most, who sees color in everything and feels sound through his bones. So I thought you believed in meant to be's and chances, but I guess I'm wrong. I guess it's gone. Should have dropped you and move on my way. You don't want no tie downs, you don't need no sad sounds. When 6 months hits us, but just hand me your heart now. I promise we won't fall down. Just trust us, living for now. You drove me home and draw me off just like that. So cold. You let me on, but now I know I'm good on my own. Don't want to tie down, you don't need no sad sounds. When 6 months hits us, but just hand me your heart now. I promise we won't fall down. Just trust us, living for now. You don't want no tie downs, you don't need no sad sounds. When 6 months hits us, but just hand me your heart now. I promise we won't fall down. Just trust us, living for now. Living for now. Living for now. I need to let you go. I can't let you